There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, and here we are. All right. Thank you for meeting me. This is Katie Summers,
Hmm.
the program coordinator and case manager at Housing and Residence Life at the University of Virginia. I just wanted to meet with you on behalf of my graduate level courses to get a better idea of what residence life, what it takes to be in residence life, how you got into it, and just met whether or not maybe a course, a section of the field of higher education I want to work in long term. And so you studied at the University of Virginia undergrad, and then you went to the University of Pennsylvania to get your master's degree in higher education. You got that master's degree after studying what in undergrad?
I studied American Studies, which was an interdisciplinary American history degree,
Mhm.
and then music was my other major.
Okay, and so how did you come to the rec- recognition that you were interested in higher education?
I was a resident advisor in my second year of college
Mhm.
here at UVA, and just fell in love with mentoring college age students, programming for them, guiding them through the ups and downs of the college existence. And I just really found a lot of meaning in that. And I knew pretty early on during that first year as an RA that I wanted to pursue higher ed as a career. My parents are also teachers, so I think I inherited a little bit of that education bug.
Mhm.
And I knew I didn't want to go into teaching per se, but I knew that I was supposed to be doing something with students and something with education. So that was sort of how I fell into higher ed.
I like how you found that out earlier. I found out that my family has a teaching history as well,
Mm-hmm.
so it kind of inspires me to keep going with that as going forward. So when you decided the program at University of Penn,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say the skills and the things that you learned there? How did that differentiate between your experiences as an RA at UVA?
So I really appreciated having a research-based um, experience in a higher education program.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated the academic side of higher ed, the study of higher ed, the all the studies and the literature that's out there about higher education. I really enjoyed being able to delve deep into that
Mm-hmm.
through a formal master's program.
Right.
And honestly, a lot of the positions I saw myself in required that master's degree. So that was part of it. I knew I should probably go to graduate school earlier than later if I knew I wanted to pursue higher ed. And I also loved the chance to work at Penn and have a different university experience. I
Mm-hmm.
think UVA can be very unique, and it's helpful to have experiences at other universities um, in order to be successful here.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that I was getting to experience students at another university, a different university's campus culture.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at the Women's Center when I was at Penn. That was my assistantship. And then I also worked in one of the college houses, which is one of the residential communities
Mm-hmm.
at Penn. So I also got to experience another version of residence life at Penn, which was interesting to compare and contrast with my experience here at UVA and residence life. So it was kind of all of those things. I also wanted to be on an urban campus,
Mm-hmm.
experience that and how that maybe influences student life at that institution. It's also a very highly international institution. I think about a third of the student population is international, which is really interesting and really cool. And also getting to work at and attend an Ivy League institution was really exciting because it definitely is a different um, it is a different kind of campus climate. Um, so that was kind of all of those things really influenced my decision to go to Penn, and I think being able to study academically that the higher education and also have practical experience in those two assistantships was super valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
subsections in higher education: admissions, financial
Mm.
aid, um, diversity and equality, things along that nature. Who would you say what acted as a mentor for you as you progressed through all of this, even though you knew you already
Yeah.
knew what you were interested
Yeah, so I was actually trying to get out of residence life,
in? Oh, okay.
but initially, and I really was craving a different kind of experience. So my experience at the Women's Center was sort of my foray into a different kind of higher ed experience.
Hmm.
Um, so actually, my supervisor at the Women's Center was a huge mentor for me. Um, a lot of that work was diversity and inclusion work.
Hmm.
It was identity development work. It was Title IX uh, prevention and response work. Um, so it complemented my residence life experience, but I was really trying to like seek a different kind of opportunity through that.
Hmm.
And she was really there to guide me throughout that process.
Right.
But I ended up back in res life because I had actually interviewed for a different position here, and I think they saw my skill set being like complementary to this new position they were creating in res life. So I just said, hey, it sounds like a great opportunity.
Hmm.
I'm getting to create my own role.
Right.
So that's sort of how I ended up back here, and I'm super happy I'm back here. But it is interesting how, even in my attempts to like try something new, I'm kind of like circling back to res life.
Right.
And I recognize that's because a lot of my strengths as a higher education professional um, really complement res life position. So who knows? I don't know how far I'll go. I might stay in res life. I might try a different part of higher ed. I personally think it's helpful to experience different parts of higher ed.
Hmm.
I worked in higher ed consulting for a while before I came back to UVA.
Right.
So I think it's important to like have your hands in different experiences so you can figure out where your strengths lie
Hmm.
and maybe eventually come back to what you thought you wanted to get away from all along. It actually ends up being where you're supposed to be. So that's kind of my experience is a little interesting in that way. But yeah, I think definitely that mentor for me in sort of navigating all of this was my supervisor at the Women's Center. And actually, my current boss,
Hmm.
Jean Petters, has been a great mentor as well. Yeah.
Question. You mentioned a couple of times that how you're recognizing your skills, aligning with where your position is currently,
Mm-hmm.
and then while applying for other jobs that were outside of residence life, that said
Mm-hmm.
you still it's still like your strengths really suit there. What would you say those strengths are
Mm-hmm.
that complement this field of work so well?
Mm-hmm.
And then what else would you be looking for in like someone you maybe interviewing for a position here,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe a team member to join your team?
Yeah. So I think my strengths are my ability to listen and to counsel people. So while I don't have a formal counseling background, I think naturally I'm able to pull information out of students and also through that help them kind of come to um, whatever answer it is that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I really enjoy. I think it's very meaningful for me to be able to be that support and that guide for whatever student I'm working with. Um, I also really enjoy programming, and I get to do a little bit in my role here at UVA. I help facilitate RA training, and I work with the student leaders on creating that training, and that's something that I find to be super meaningful. Um, and so that's something that I've found I'm very good at is
Mm-hmm.
planning a program, planning an event, implementing an event, and then evaluating that event
Mm-hmm.
or training. And I'm also very calm. I think a lot of my work is very unpredictable, and that's something I enjoy about it. But you have to be pretty calm and rooted. So I think I've found that during crises or during difficult times, I'm able to maintain that sense of calm, and that's honestly something I would be looking for in someone. And it's sort of hard to gauge, I think, through an interview. So I think having tangible examples of times you were able to remain calm during a difficult situation is helpful for someone hiring for a res life position. And yet that ability to listen and that ability to also um, use or that ability to pay attention to how diversity and inclusion can influence your work and your interactions with the students you're working with or the colleagues you're working with. I think having that multicultural competence is really crucial with someone coming into a res life role, but really is very crucial for any higher ed role, in my opinion. So,
Nice. Let's see. Kind of talked about that a little bit. Okay, let's. So you mentioned earlier that Mondays are definitely one of the busier days,
mhm,
especially towards like certain specific times of year,
mhm.
major events, the weekend. But what would you say a typical day on a Wednesday
Mhm.
in the middle of September, away from any major events are? Everyone's moved in, settled, and nothing big is about to happen. What's a typical day to day on your position like?
So usually I come in and there are typically a couple of RA reports from the night before. So I come in, I look at our incident management system, I read the reports, I follow up with the RA or the student that's involved in the incident, um, and I also edit and clean all the reports. My role really is to help with Linda
Mm-hmm.
in that sense and to make sure that all of our data are clean within our RA reports. So I'll do that maybe for the first hour, hour and a half on a
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday. And then I sit on a bunch of university committees. So I might go to a student access committee. I have one of those today. I might go to the Coalition on Eating Disorder education meeting. I might go to a debrief meeting about move-in. We have one of those coming up. And then I might have a one-on-one with one of the student leaders I work with who plans all of the training for the student staff. So I might meet with her,
Mm-hmm.
check in on how she's doing, what she's up to. She also organizes all of the in-services for the year, all of the Res Life staff events for the year, the fun events. So I might meet with her. So it's kind of a mixture of things. It's never boring.
Right.
Um,
Let's
yeah.
see. Could you like give me an example of like what would be a long-term goal? I think that in missions and equity and inclusion, it's pretty clear what those goals are in terms of either increasing turnout or trying to prevent or trying to maintain retention rates, or in equity
Mm-hmm.
inclusion, increasing diversity, inclusion, acceptances, and then making sure those students stay at school. What would you say in housing and residence life is a long-term goal that you guys always are striving for?
Yeah, I think we always refer back to our mission statement, and that is to create inclusive and welcoming communities for any students that live in on-ground housing, but we also extend that to any students that are here at the university.
Mm-hmm.
We really focus on creating and sustaining community
Right.
and ensuring that every student feels welcome
Mm-hmm.
and feels that they can succeed here. And so that's something we always talk about as a team, in making sure that everything we do is tied to that mission statement.
Mm-hmm. When I've been working in high schools a while as a quasi counselor. I don't have a master's in counseling, so I'm not a counselor officially. But I spoke with my fellow colleagues, and they always say that they're not interested in the administrative role because they're not able to directly impact students on a personal level that say their principal or their
Mm-hmm.
superintendents are. How would you say your role has shifted from being an RA to being an
Mm-hmm.
administrator in housing and residence life? And are you able, and how have your levels of satisfaction and gratification
Mm-hmm.
in the job changed since those changes in roles?
Yeah, I actually think my level of satisfaction has increased. So I might have fewer interactions with students,
Mm-hmm.
but I find that the interactions I have are very meaningful, and I do find a lot of value in those interactions, and I hope the students I'm working with do as well.
Mm-hmm.
So while a lot of I have a lot more meetings that are more transactional in nature, more like they come in, I have a follow up about maybe an alcohol incident they were involved in the night before.
Mm-hmm.
They they generally they'll say, yeah, this didn't go well. Here's what I'll do in the future, and then they'll leave, and that's like hopefully the last time I see them in that capacity.
Right.
I still find that to be very meaningful, and hopefully I'm playing a small part in their development.
Right.
Um, and I think too, when I was an RA, I was so close to the student experience. It
Mm-hmm.
was it while it was super meaningful, it was hard for me to find that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's very easy for me to find that balance, and I'm able to, I think, do an even more effective job
Mm-hmm.
now that I'm not as close to it. But I still remember my experience very vividly, so I
Right.
can pull from that. But I think I'm more effective at what I do because I'm a little bit more removed and have some more life experience.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think I was very satisfied then as an RA, and I'm probably the same, if not more, um, satisfied now by the work I'm doing. So
Yeah, I noticed personally that as I've gone a little bit further away, it gets a little bit easier. A
yeah,
lot of my jobs, I've been hired specifically because of how close in age I am to students, whether it be in high school or in college.
hmm
So it's really great to know that, as you continue to rise in administrative roles, it gets a little bit easier to still interact with students, but not feel like you are one of them
yes,
on the same
yeah,
level. I mean, I caught the bus here, and I definitely didn't feel like a student.
yeah.
I felt like I was a little bit out of out of sorts. I'm wondering if you mind if I ask uh, just like if you however comfortable you are answering this question, what is your quality of life working in higher
hmm
education? I know that many of my colleagues from the College Advising Corps make the jokes about what teaching and education
hmm
professions provide our quality of life. Wondering, are you comfortable? Do you
hmm
have a good quality of life because of the positions you're in?
Yeah,
You are?
yeah. I think I derive a lot of self worth from whatever job I'm in,
Hmm.
school. Like I see my work as a direct reflection of who I am as a person. And I know some people have different opinions about that, but that's how I view like my work experience.
Right.
So I find that when I'm high performing in a role, um, regardless of how maybe tired I am or stressed I am, like at any given moment, that really sustains me and that
Mm-hmm.
keeps me going. And so and I think too, it's really up to you as an individual to set your boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
to have open conversations with your supervisor about what you need, what's working, what's not working, and hopefully they're willing to work with you on if you need more space or if you want to set boundaries. Being able to have a conversation with them about that, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is really important. So luckily, I've been able to do that. Um, and I make sure to do fun things on the weekends. I
Right.
have like a social life. I'm getting married in a year, so I'm planning
Congratulations.
a wedding. So like there are other things in my life that I'm able to focus on.
Right.
Um,
It's not all consuming.
yeah,
Right. I guess that's what I'm focusing
yeah.
on.
Sometimes honestly, I think it really is up to you as the individual to make sure that it doesn't become all consuming
Mm-hmm.
if that's not something you want. Some people want that, but I know that I need balance, so I take it upon myself to make sure I figure out ways to create that balance for myself.
I noticed that in my personal experience, as I was lower down the hierarchy of my job, I felt that there was more expectation for us to take work home, literally, and then
Interesting.
sometimes projects kind of just spread out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes so we can, as a college advisor, you're in the school every day, but then you're also maybe you'll take up a coaching job, maybe you'll help with the drama department. Then some of those activities will take over to the weekend. They want you to fully immerse yourself into the community and even though being a part of the community is good for where I moved, it was also it felt almost like a task and a job task or tedious in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to know that as you continue to rise up, it doesn't you are able to enjoy your quality of life and everything as well. One thing I've noticed that as I continue to have more experience in higher education,
Mm-hmm.
there's an expectation for us to wear a lot of hats and to play a lot of different roles. Do you feel that each position that you join or that your education at the University of Pennsylvania has properly prepared you for all the different roles that are expected in the positions that you
Hmm.
apply for?
Yeah, I think it has. Um, Again, I'm someone that like really thrives off of variety. So the fact that I'm able to wear a lot of different hats is something that really excites me.
Hmm.
Honestly, being an RA is almost enough experience. So, and then I was a student leader later on,
Hmm.
and that was really great experience as well. So I felt really prepared. Um, yeah, I definitely feel like I can kind of approach any challenge that I'm confronted with. And
Hmm.
I think it's also helpful to know who your human resources are if
Right.
you're about to have a difficult conversation with a student, or if you're not really sure how to go about something. It's helpful to know, okay, who are people that like are really good at this, and I should probably ask them questions about how
Hmm.
they might go about this. So asking for help too, I think, is always going to be really important and crucial for anyone to succeed in any role.
Right. And you feel that this field and your work environments are very all encompassing and making sure you're successful and
Yeah.
willing to help you
Yeah.
should you call upon it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Good,
Mm-hmm.
good. I think this is my last question. I got two more. What type of resources and technology do you use, and do you feel like you collaborate with other departments? That might have been too many questions all at once.
Sure. Um,
I guess you like use typical database
yeah.
systems and database organizers for like all the students you're keeping track of.
Yeah. So we have actually a brand new incident management system
Hmm.
that we rolled out. We rolled it out, I guess, last spring. So we're able to create more reports
Hmm.
through that system. So that's one piece of technology that we use.
It doesn't require a CS major to understand this
No.
technology though.
Mm-mm.
And as far as just collaboration, housing and residence life, are you said that there are other channels, other people to pass along reports. Is there another entity other than the university at large that you're reporting back to when you're in terms of like your work and your progress?
Um, could you explain what you mean by another
Sorry,
entity?
sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So I guess in my mind when I see my role and what I
Mm-hmm.
want to do in higher education, I want to work in the Department of Education and like facilitating resources and understanding like what type of policies that are being implemented in different schools. And I'm wondering, uh, do you, I guess like, are you reporting back your numbers and your findings like strictly to, like directly to your dean, and then they facilitate that beyond there?
So yeah, so my role is primarily like on the ground level, like
Hmm.
making sure things look, our reports, our incident reports are clean, and
Hmm.
that everything makes sense. And then there's a Clery compliance person who checks. I don't know if you're familiar with Clery legislation, but it's
A little
basically
bit.
crime reporting
Right.
at universities and colleges, and that's basically all of that information is compiled into a report that's shared with the public.
Hmm.
So the Clery person will also look at the report and count like how many students were involved in this alcohol incident, or how many students, or who was involved in this um, burglary, or whatever it might be.
Right.
So they're looking at it. And then our central dean of students office is looking at it, and they do generate a report that they share with. Um, I don't know if they share it with the public, but they at least share it with like the higher level administrators here at the university.
Right.
Um, and we obviously work very closely with the Title IX office, and they have kind of their own process for evaluating cases. So I just make sure that the information is clean, but other people are able to look at it, and students are able to subpoena any any cases they're involved with. Like they can pull that, and that's public information. So that's why my job is really crucial,
Mm.
um, because these reports can be public knowledge at
Mm.
any point. So it's important that they make sense and
Right.
that they're accurate.
Hmm.
So I hope that answers your question.
It did. Thank you. I
Yeah,
apologize. It
yeah,
was a
no, no,
little
you're.
wonky of a
I think
question.
I got where you were, but I personally am not responsible for creating like any kind of public report. I just make
Hmm.
sure that the information makes sense for the people that do create those reports.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you had a little bit of interest in working in fields of higher education that weren't residence life.
Hmm.
Have you ever given any thought as to what your next step is career-wise is?
I have. That's still a question that I'm like still trying to answer for
Hmm.
myself. Right now I'm really happy with what I'm doing, so I don't really feel like a huge rush to like leave. I'm also someone that like is an achiever, and so it would be cool to like get promoted eventually or to work in the same office and move up through that office. So
Right.
I'm open to staying. I'm open to other opportunities, but um, I've thought about career services because that's a little bit more coaching and advising, and that's something I really enjoy.
Right.
I've also thought about like working at the president's office or working in alumni engagement. I'm kind of open to a lot of different things. Yeah.
I just have one more question.
Mhm.
This is a little bit just maybe to fill me with a little bit of hope or
Okay.
prepare me for the darkness that is post grad life. Um,
Never darkness.
Never darkness.
Yeah.
Okay, all up then. Uh, there are so many different types of work to consider when looking at higher
Hmm.
education, from admissions, which I worked in, coaching, advising, residence life, financial aid, diversity and equity. Would you say that as a future higher education professional, that the job market is growing, shrinking? Is it stagnant? Do you think there's room for growth?
I think it's growing.
Hmm.
I think our students need. Well, I'm not sure what the root of the growth is. Sometimes I think our students need more resources.
Hmm.
Sometimes I think we're just providing more resources and then they're getting snatched up, so then we need more. I
Hmm.
don't really know like what the genesis of that issue is, but I do think the field is growing.
Right.
Um,
I would
yeah,
think maybe it'd be just we're recognizing the need
yeah,
for more, like the need for students to be more engaged, that
yeah.
students or may require more resources,
Mm-hmm,
and so I think that there's an opportunity for more services to be provided to them.
mm-hmm,
So I'm ecstatic at the idea of it being growing as
mm-hmm.
I'm looking to enter it myself. It's all about just getting the resources there so that it
Yeah,
can continue to grow.
and I think it's that growth is research informed. Like
Hmm.
I think there's been a lot of new higher ed research out that sort of justifies the need for specific human capital, human resources at universities. So I think that's part of it. I think you're definitely right that there's a recognition that maybe students need something different and need more or want to be more engaged. And
Awesome.
yeah.
All right.
So you're great. You'll get a job. Don't
Awesome.
worry about it.
I mean,
Enjoy your program.
I guess it's less about a job and just make sure I'm not underemployed
Yeah.
or like thrown into a crazy position like I was not too long ago. But that's,
You might be, and if you are, it's even if it's not what you want to be doing.
hmm.
I think just look at it as good experience,
Right.
and it'll help you kind of figure out what you do want to be doing.
Okay.
That I had an experience like that, and it was while I didn't enjoy the work
Hmm.
as much as I enjoy what I'm doing now, it was still a really useful experience.
Okay.
So that's my piece of advice.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again for me.
Yeah.
You
Thanks for
enjoy your
having
day.
me.
Absolutely. I'm